She rolls over, tries to go to sleep, and then I roll over. I'm trying to go to sleep, and I'm sitting there, dude. I'm just thinking. I'm not thinking. I'm feeling. I'm feeling in my gut just this like I don't want to be here right now. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Pupil's Life, episode 86. We're coming up close on episode 100. 15 more to go if you count this one, I think. How's everyone doing, man? How is everyone doing? I should dust this fucking mic at some point. I've had it for over a year and I've not dusted it once. Welcome. This is The Pupil's Life, man. If you're new here, get with the program. If you've been here before, you know what the fuck is going on, so why are you asking? Dude, it's fucking, what is it? It's March. I just got home from I went to a new part of, I don't even think it's the Greenbelt, actually, but it felt kind of like the Greenbelt. I went to a new hiking location here in Austin. Let's just call it that. I went to a new hiking location at the Onion Creek Metropolitan Park. And I just got home from that a couple hours ago. So I'm fucking pooped. But I got home, ate some dinner, and I was like, shit, I haven't recorded The Pupil's Life this week. I have not recorded the Pupil's Life podcast this week. What is it? What is the world becoming? And I haven't done the newsletter in about 2 weeks either. And I also haven't written or made progress on the new book in about a week. And I'm going to get into why. I've had a very fucking, I've had an interesting week. I've had a very up and down week. And I'm at the climax of the week has happened already. And now I'm just in the epilogue. I think it's what it is. I forget which one's before and which one's after, but I'm pretty sure the epilogue is the one that goes after. So I'm in the epilogue right now. It's just like the bad guy got caught. They've arrested him. And now they're just letting the family know that everything is going to be okay, that the bad guy's going to be put in jail. But there's still room, there's still room where I'm at. There's still room for like the Dark Knight, the end of Batman Begins. The end of Batman Begins. There's still room for the end of Batman Begins where fucking, Gordon Gekko or fucking, that's Wall Street. Detective Oldman, right? Gary Oldman basically shows up with Bruce or Batman, I can't remember, in some like storage container facility, and he shows him a card and he's like, they say the Joker's been in town. That sounded like Batman, but all I'm saying is that there's still room for like, one of those little setting it up for the next time cliffhangers. But no. So I just got home from the Onion Creek Metropolitan Park, and the thing about the parks and the creeks and the hikes here in Austin, that at least from my limited experience in hiking, I've hiked in California and I've hiked the Grand Canyon, but as far as places that I've lived, I've hiked in fucking Ventura, California, Malibu, that area. And now I'm in Austin, Texas, and I've hiked a lot in Texas. And just comparing the two, like, there's something about hikes in Texas where it just really feels like you're out in the middle of fucking nowhere. The hikes I went on in California, I remember, I could always see the ocean, or I could always, it was mountains. And so, yes, I'm in the middle of nowhere. It's still the same thing if you think of it literally, but I'm up high on a mountain and I can look around me and I can see, okay, there's LA, there's fucking Camarillo, there's Oxnard, there's that. I can see different towns, different counties, if you will. But here in Austin, a lot of times you're going under. And I don't mean underground. I just mean like you're going below the level, the below city level. And so all you see around you is like fucking limestones and trees and birds in the sky. Uh, and the one that I was at today, I'm taking care of my brother's dog. I'm taking care of Ellie for a week. And I took her to, it's so fun, when I get to do this, it's fun because sometimes I get to keep my brother's car while he's gone. And so for the week that he's gone, it kind of feels like what would my life be like if I had a car in Austin? I see my friends more. I go outside more. I don't have to ride the bus to work. I can go to the grocery store anytime I want. I can go to my favorite restaurants, food trucks. I can go on dates with more frequency or just easier. Right? I can squeeze them in at different times. Where if I'm having to take an Uber, if I'm having to take a fucking bus, then it's kind of like, all right, I got to schedule an hour in there somewhere to get there, and then an hour to get back. So if it's a Tuesday night, the thought of going on a date somewhere that it takes me an hour to get to and fro, then it's fucking like, the date's over at 10:30, 11. Now I'm going to get home at midnight. Got to be up at 10 the next day to go to fucking work. And it's just like, God, dude, it puts you in a more stressful situation going into the date. But anyway, dude, talking around the topic. If you live in Austin and you haven't been to the Onion Creek Metropolitan Park, I cannot recommend it enough, man. I keep saying the thing is, man, it's like I'm a robot, dude, and I haven't updated the software, and I'm just like, I don't even, that's the whole metaphor, dude. That's the whole fucking analogy. But what was the thing is that I was going to say? Oh yeah. So I get there and I arrive at the wrong entrance, and the entrance that I arrive at is just blocks and blocks and blocks and blocks of trees with, some semi parking in between, each block. But I don't see any parking. Like I don't see any people parked is what I mean. I see cars parked, but they're not like people that came to the fucking hiking. They're like beat down SUVs or trucks, I mean, pickup trucks. They are like windowless vans. Cars that like your drug dealer drives. And there's trash everywhere, and I'm just like where did I come to the right place? because I can see an entrance. I can see an entrance, but I just don't feel safe like parking my brother's car there and leaving it for 2.5 hours. Like the place that I was in looked like nobody had been there in 3 months. Like all that was missing was a fucking tumbleweed flying by, rolling by. Uh, and so then I go on Google Maps, right, like a fucking tourist, and I look at the place that I'm at, and I'm looking at the reviews, and they're just like, yeah, there's fucking trash everywhere, and it's like just people complaining, right? And then I zoom out on the map and I see that there's the Onion Creek Metropolitan Park. I was at the fucking Onion Creek Greenbelt entrance or some bullshit, right? Like there's like 6 different pinpoints on Google Maps for the same place. I'm just like, can we fucking just pick one and make it obvious, or can we at least put one and make it bigger than the others so that people know, like, hey, these all these other small ones you can get to from the big one. You don't have to drive to the small one because your car might get jacked. So I drive to the big one. And I get there, and all of a sudden it's like a completely different scenery. You know, it's there's a sprawling open field of just green and no trees, just sprawling open field, like 6 football fields in length and width. And you know, there's not very many people there, but still there's like 3 or 4 groups of people, family, a couple, you know, some friends walking their dogs. And so I'm like, all right, I've arrived to a place where, you know, they're not filming the next fucking, you know, Brazzers porno. And so I fucking, you know, I park the car, I get the dog out, and I get on my way. And I leave my phone in the car with just the intention of like, dude, I just want to get lost in nature. Right? It's how a white person gets lost in nature these days. Is like, I want to experience the wilderness. I'm going to leave my phone behind. And so I brought a backpack with me. I brought a fucking, so because I could have the leash, you know, a little bowl for water, a canteen with water, just the bare necessities for the dog and me. And I set out on foot and just we're walking, and it's mostly off leash, except for, you know, when I run into the occasional small dog. And we walk, man. We walk for like 40 minutes. We walk for like 45 minutes, 50 minutes, an hour. And about an hour and a half in, I start thinking, boy, we've walked for quite a while now. And we've made several turns. You know, we've turned so much that I don't know what direction I'm facing in anymore. And I'm also starting to doubt my ability to get back to the place where we began. But at that moment, I made the decision. I'm going to fucking trust Ellie. You know, they say the dogs are good at smelling and picking up on tracks and shit like that, right? So I'm just going to let Ellie decide where we go. And, you know, she's off leash. She's like 15 to 20 feet ahead of me at all times, turning. Every time she reaches the 15 feet, she stops and turns and waits 5 feet for me and then keeps going. So really, it's like she's walking me. And so yeah, we keep walking, and all of a sudden I see a group of people on horseback, and there's a cowgirl leading them, and she's like, "Howdy, how y'all doing today?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm doing well, but I think she's a little bit nervous." And they keep going on their horseback, and I overhear them. I overhear her. She's like giving them a tour, right? And she's just saying like, you know, we've owned this land for about 25 years, and a tree recently fell because of the snow, and we had to chop that down. I'm just like, oh, we own the land. Like, that would be so. That I just didn't comprehend it when I heard it. I thought about that for like the next 20 minutes, and then I ran into another group on horseback, and there was a different cowgirl leading this group, and she wasn't talking as much. I could tell she was more shy because I was the one that said hi. Yeah, that's how I know when someone else is shy, is when I'm the one that says hello first. And I thought about asking her, what does it mean that you own this land? They're like, there's homeless people. I've seen a couple of tents and trash bags. And then it's also open to the public. Like, um, I don't know. And there's also Milton Reimer's Ranch where the Pedernales River crosses. And that's also owned by someone. But I just don't understand the concept of, oh, I own this land, but it's also public property, kind of like, or is it just open private property? I don't know. It was fascinating to me in my lost in nature mind. And something that if I had had my phone on me, I probably wouldn't have given a fuck about, I probably would have been like, oh, let me take some pictures of these horses. It's Ellie's first time seeing horses. Let me take a picture of her. But yeah, so that was interesting. And then as soon as I saw that group, I started seeing horse shit about every 15 feet. So my eyes came down, and I now had to be glued to the ground. But there's just there's so many tall trees, and it got to the point where I saw the map. I saw the map going in, and on my phone, it was just like an inch. I could put my thumb over the whole green area. And so I was like, all right, maybe this is going to be a quicker hike than I expected. And 2 hours in, I'm just like, all right, maybe I should make the call. Maybe I should make the call and start going back. Maybe Ellie isn't going to find her way back. All of a sudden, I'm expecting that the trail is going to come around, and that somehow we will have been walking back already for the last 45 minutes without me noticing it, right? Even though everything I've been seeing has been new, I'm starting to think maybe we did enough turns that the trail just loops back. But I'm letting Ellie lead. And she's fucking just still having a great time, man. And it was just beautiful, man. I have tomorrow off, and I think I'm gonna go. I don't know if the same place, but I think I'm just gonna go find another place and go do the same thing there. Because it really reminded me of that year that I was in college, where if I didn't have class and if I didn't have plans, I would just hop in my car, map out a trail, and go there, park, get out, take my backpack with me, and see where the wind takes me. So yeah, man, I've had a relaxing day. I've had a much needed relaxing day, dude. After a fucking just a bizarre week. Even though bizarre is a judgment, for the lack of a less judgmental word, dude, bizarre week. Because I'd been, dude, I'm gonna get into it. But so there's a lot of context, and I don't know how much of it I want to get into and how much of it I need to get into, but I was tested, man. I was tested in the last week and a half to 2 weeks. All the work that I've been doing, man, was put to the test. And by all the work I've been doing, I just mean all the, the the writing my memoir, the sharing my memoir, the going to therapy for the last 2.5 something years, the ketamine, the mushrooms, the fucking, just all the shit that I've been doing, the boundary setting, all these things that I've been learning were put to the test. And you might be wondering, well, why, Nick? Why were they put to the test? So, back in January, I think it was like early to mid-January, I went on a date with a woman, and who will remain nameless, by the way. Uh, and she didn't live in Austin, but she was visiting Austin. And we went on a date the night before she was to leave. And I knew going into the date that she didn't live here. She told me, I'm in Austin under unusual circumstances. And I was like, oh, dude, unusual circumstances. Immediately I felt two things. I felt like, fuck, dude, another woman that doesn't actually live here. How does fucking Hinge keep matching me with tourists? There should be another dating app called Tourists, and you could just go on there if you wanted to date tourists and have momentary flings. Not what I was looking for, but I'm like, all right, hadn't been on a date maybe in a couple of weeks, so I was like, dude, I want to go on a date, right? So I'm like, all right, yeah, fucking unusual circumstances, let's do it. I meet her for a drink, around 8 p.m., 9 p.m. And 6 hours later, we're in her hotel lobby, waiting for my Uber. And we say goodbye, and we're like, hey, we had a blast that night, and go home. She leaves the next day. And over the next, I would say, week or two, I progressively, like, just naturally, we start to text more and more. And she says one day, she says, we should go on a Zoom date, why the hell not? And I was like, that's ballsy. And I was attracted to that. And I did feel this pull to spend time with her. So I said, okay, let's do it. No expectations. Let's just fucking see what that's like. And so we go on a Zoom date, and it's a fine date, has its moments, both good and bad. And then from, let's say, like mid to late January to mid February, she and I continue to go. I would say we went on like about one Zoom date a week, but we texted every day, pretty much every day. And I still continued to go on other dates. But the whole time I was just like, man, I really wish that she lived in Austin so that I could be going on dates with her instead. And I forget when it was, but she told me, hey, I'm going to go to Austin for, I'm going to be in Austin mid-February. And I'm going with a friend of mine, and blah, blah, blah. It would be nice to see you. And I was like, oh, hell yeah, I'll get time off, and I for sure would like to see you. And then like 5 days later, she texts me and she says, hey, my friend canceled, but I'm still thinking about going. Sketchy at that. I was like, oh, was there ever really a friend, or do you just really want to see me? But I don't get carried away. So I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I understand if you don't want to. I mean, we don't know each other. I would still really like to see you if you decide to come, and if not, no problem. Next day, she says, I've made up my mind. I am going. I'm like, awesome. And she's planning on arriving on the 14th. And we make plans for the 14th. Nothing fancy, nothing like, oh, we're like a boyfriend and girlfriend, nothing like that kind of Valentine's, but just like, oh, let's go, grab a drink and just have something, not casual, but just something like easy going because you're gonna have been flying all day. She's like, cool, you're my Valentine. I'm like, haha, yeah, sure. And then I think it's like February, it's 7 or 8, dude. She says, no, it's like February like 10 when she says, hey, I postponed the trip. And I'm like, oh. And she says, yeah, I pushed it back to the fucking the 20 something because there's an incoming snowstorm. And at the time, the snowstorm, I was like, dude, this fucking snowstorm, you're postponing your trip because of a snowstorm, right? And it kind of ticked me off, man. And I'm like, maybe she's having second thoughts and this is just her excuse, right? But whatever, man. It comes around and it's fucking Sunday night when she was supposed to be here. There's a fucking, the snow apocalypse arrives. And so I'm like, oh, what do you know? I was wrong and she was right. And she's supposed to arrive, I think it's like on the 21st or something like that. And now, it's February 18th and she's like, I'm postponing the trip again. And I'm like, oh, really? She's like, yeah, just a couple days to make sure that I don't arrive in the snowstorm. And she postpones it till like the 23rd or some shit. And I'm just like, all right, that's the second time she's postponed it. It keeps irking me, but it's just a couple days, so I have an easier time letting it go. And then, the 20th arrives and she says, hey, I postponed it again because it's going to take at least a week and some change for Austin to get back on its feet. And I'm like, dude, at this point, it's like the sun has been out for a day. The snow's all melted. I've gone to work a day or two. And it's just like, dude, you don't live here. You're fucking reading the news. You just think that, at that point I was convinced that it wouldn't be a good idea for her to come anymore. But I thought, I ignored my gut. And I just said, man, stop trying to figure out what's going on and just let whatever's happening happen. And if it's good, dude, enjoy it. And if it's bad, you can set your boundaries. You could say no. You could take care of yourself, dude. Just stop trying to control this. So I'm like, all right, dude. I let it go. And then finally she arrives. And first night that she's here, we go out. And it's just after 20 minutes of it being like she's excited to see me and oh, it's so surreal and it's so bizarre and blah blah blah. I just start to feel like, man, she's either very nervous or she's just like she just didn't feel like she wanted to be there. She was complaining a lot and she was like being critical and judgmental of me and more than that, even more than that, it was just that I felt this competitiveness in the dynamic of like everything I said she wanted to prove wrong, and everything that she said that I asked why or I asked more about, she thought I was trying to prove her wrong. And so it came to a point where I just kind of was like, fuck, dude, all right. Like, there's only so much I can do, And maybe it also had to do with me not being a good conversationalist. Like, I was more than happy to say, oh, maybe I'm half of this disaster, But I just didn't know what to do, man. I just didn't know how to help her, what to fucking how to make her feel more comfortable. And when I asked, like, are you nervous? Are you like, what's going on? She was like, don't worry, like just deflecting, right? Deflecting. And so I was like, all right, dude. Not everyone needs to be asked about their feelings. I get that. Let's just put it behind us. So she drops me off at home. I say goodbye. go to sleep. And the next day, she reaches out and says, "Hey, I made reservations at this place for us to go get drinks." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe she was just tired. She'd been up since 5 in the morning. Maybe she was just tired." And so she picks me up and we go out again and we go to this place and we arrive and they're like, "Oh, it looks like your reservation was for tomorrow, not today." And so we have to sit outside and it's fucking 15 degrees. And the jazz band that she wanted to go see was inside. So things aren't going well for her. Things aren't going well on her end because she was the one that made the plans. I don't really give a fuck, right? I'm just trying to spend time with her. And she's like, "Oh shit, I feel like an idiot." And I'm like, "Oh, it's okay. I don't really give a fuck." And so like try to like change the conversation and talk about, getting to know each other. And the same tension is there. The same competitiveness is there. And just this same vibe of like, like who the fuck are you? Basically, like her just looking at me like, the fuck are you? Uh, and just this indifference, man. And so, and I know that it felt the same. It must have felt the same for her at a certain point because it got to the point for me where I was like, all right, I've asked 50 different questions and I've gotten the same answer for each one. I don't give a fuck anymore either, dude. I'm gonna stop trying, right? And so it's just like what are we playing, man? What are we fucking what board game are we playing right now? Right? Can I just declare bankruptcy and go home, dude? Fucking upturn the fucking board and throw everybody's pieces off the table and just fucking end it in like a chaos, dude? Does it have to get to that? Um, but we just like continue to ignore it, man, and then we walk over to another bar from that bar and order a bottle of wine. We sit down, we start to talk. Same dynamic, and it gets to the point where she's like, I was really angry last night. And I say, "Oh, really? Well, why is that?" And she's like, she starts she starts feeding me this narrative of the night before that isn't true, or I should say that is her distorted perspective of the events. And I say, "All right, man, I'm going to be blunt with you. This whole time, these whole 2 days, I've been holding back, right? Just giving her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe you're tired. Maybe this is just an unusual circumstance. Coming to visit somebody that you've gone on one date with. Maybe, right? But it gets to the point where I'm fucking fed up with it. And so I say, I'm gonna be blunt with you. I know that there's something going on. I pull out Ryan Gosling from Blue Valentine, and I say, I'm a fucking intuitive guy, and I know that there's something going on. And if you don't want to talk about it, that's cool. 100%, dude. If you don't want to fucking talk about whatever it is that's going on with you, that is totally understandable. But I don't want to spend time with you if it's going to continue to look like this, because I'm not enjoying myself. And I can only take this so much. I've been asking you questions. I've been trying to, touch you and put my hand on you and like, and put my arm around you and stuff like that. And I just feel like it's all getting rejected or ignored or deflected. And I said, dude, it's so funny. It's funny, but I'm also kind of proud that I said what I'm about to share. The next words out of my mouth were, I am worth more than what you're treating me right now, than the way that you're treating me right now. And the whole time I was saying this, dude, I could just see in her face that she was like, holy shit, no one's ever called me out this way. And my little bullshit isn't working. And she even said, you're right. And I said, yeah, but I'm not trying to be right. I'm just trying to tell you This is not what I'm interested in. I'm excited to see you and I want to have a good time, but I'm not interested in this little whatever the fuck this is, because whatever the fuck it is, it's all in your head. I've asked you about it and you don't want to talk about it. And so I can't pull it out of you, is basically what I was saying. And then, through a series of lines of questioning and thought and just different conversations and 30 minutes of time, it seemed like we were starting to get on the same page, i.e., she was kind of sharing, like, I'm just nervous because I started thinking, what the fuck am I doing here? Why the fuck did I fly out here? Right. And I was like, hey, I respect that. I would rather you tell me that you're having second thoughts than to just fucking not say anything. Right. That's more respectable. And it lets me sort of figure out what the hell is going on. And so as soon as we start to sort of get on the same page, she says, by the way, I'm not going to have sex with you. And I said, you mean tonight or like at all? And she said, at all. And I said, oh, really? And why is that? And she said, because I only sleep with people that I'm exclusive with. And so I said, okay. Well, I only am exclusive with people that I've already slept with. Like totally respect people that operate backwards from the way that I operate, which might be backwards to the way that they operate, but totally respect the people that would like to fucking save sex for after marriage, basically. But, a big component of being in a relationship with somebody is a physical component. And I'm not going to commit myself to someone if I don't know what that physical component looks like. I want to know the whole self. I want to know everything before I make a commitment, man. I made this mistake 3 times already, where I commit before I know, not before I have sex, but before I fucking know the person. And so I say that to her in as kind words as I can, is basically, okay, well, then maybe this isn't the best idea. I wish you had told me this before you flew all the way out here. Because from the messages that we were exchanging, it seemed very much like this was going to be a part of it, And I'm not just looking for sex, man. I'm not just fucking like, I'm not just looking to be a friend either. Like you said you wanted to come here to date the hell out of me. Those were her words. And she even told me at one point, every time I have sex with a new person or every time I have a new foreign object in my vagina, I get a yeast infection. So I'm like, they're just saying shit that made me had me under the impression like, yeah, this is going to be friendly, romantic, sexual, like all of it. There's going to be everything. And as soon as we start to get on the same page, she just fucking says that. And it's like, all right, well, I think now we're at an impasse. And she says, well, then we're at an impasse. And I'm like, all right, well, then I will leave you be. And I think you can still have a great time in Austin without me. So have a blast. And she pulls me into another discussion about why and blah, blah, blah. And I fucking tag along for it, but it ends up in the same place. And she repeats, I'm not going to have sex with you if we're not exclusive. And I'm like, all right, well, then have a good night. I get up. I call an Uber. As I'm waiting for the Uber, she walks up to me. She says, you should cancel your Uber. And I'm like, why would I do that? She's like, because I don't want you to leave and I'm not sure what I want. And I said, well, I'm not attracted to that. I'm going to go home. Have a good night. And I go home, man. And I go home. And as I'm going home, I'm feeling like, dude, that sucks, but what a fucking badass. that I just set my boundaries and that I fucking enforce them, and that I just like, that I didn't just lie to somebody just to get what I want or to make them think that they're going to get what they want just so that they'll give me what I, like, uh, and yeah, so I was just feeling like proud of myself, man. And she started texting me that night, and I ignored it, and I went to bed. And then the next day she texted me again, and it was like, so just to be clear, you're saying, uh, you don't want to see me if I don't have sex with you? And I was like, in my head, I'm like, well, that's a fucking shitty way of putting it. But I'm not gonna, it was, the phrasing of the question was beyond the point, that I was just like, I'm not even gonna explain to her why this is a fucked up question. I'm just gonna feed her what she wants, basically. And I said, yeah, that's what I'm saying. She's like, okay, thank you for your honesty. Boom, end of conversation. 8 hours later, 9 p.m., she texts me, okay, I've changed my mind. I would like to see you again. And I said, be clear on what the fuck that means, dude. Be clear. And all the fucks, I'm just inserting that because it's the pupil's life, dude. And that's just the way that I talk. This was not, a lot of this was not really like, oh, fuck you, like, like aggressive. A lot of it was just like, we were both upset that it didn't seem like it was going to be what we wanted. And we were just expressing our boundaries and our desires and wants and needs and all that. But I said, yeah, I want you to be clear on what that means. And she said, Nick, I want to have sex with you, but I don't want it to be like an on call. Like I get there and we have to like have sex right then and there. I want us to have a good time, and I think that if we both have a good time, it'll naturally happen because it'll be what we both want. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. And I say, fair enough. I'm open to seeing you again. But last night was, it took a toll, man. It took a toll on my fucking mental and my physical body. And I don't want that to happen again. So if you're sure that you've changed your mind and that this is something you want to explore, by all means, I'm open to that, but please make sure. And so then I see her again after this little moment, and we have a wonderful night, man. We have a wonderful night where we go out we walk from her hotel, fucking 45 minutes to downtown at night, and we get a couple drinks at different places and then ride bicycles back to her hotel, have sex that night, and then the next morning, and then she drops me off at work. And all of a sudden, dude, it seems like awesome. There was just that initial moment of, what the fuck are we doing? But like, we've moved past it, right? Is what I started to think. And after I get off work, she picks me up again. And what did we do, man? I don't know what we did that night, but it basically, oh yeah, I went over to her Airbnb. She moved into a new Airbnb, and I was going to make dinner there, and she was going to make dinner, and we were going to have a bottle of wine and have a fun time, right? Well, I get to the Airbnb, man, and I'm pooped because we stayed up all night. I had to work, and then it's like I've been up for 29 hours with 3 hours of sleep or some shit like that, right? I'm just exhausted and low energy, and she starts to get in her head about it, and she asks me about it, and I say, hey, I'm just low energy. It'll take me a little bit of time to get to you to match your energy, but I'll get there. And it basically, man, like, it happens again, right? Something happens on her end. I ask her about it. She doesn't share about it because she feels defensive and afraid to express her emotions for whatever reason. I could sit here and theorize on why she was afraid to express her emotions or who hurt her in the past. But at the end of the day, it was pretty obvious that was what was happening. And so we had another full fucking hour-long conversation. Started with me saying, asking, hey, what's going on? Hey, what's going on? And just her like, I'd rather just fucking talk about, the food we're eating. I'm just like, all right, dude. Well, I feel uncomfortable at this point. You've commented on my behavior not being correct or not being good enough, and I've expressed to you why that is. I've asked you how you're like. I've been transparent, but you haven't. If you want to talk, I'll be in this other room. But until that happens, like I don't know how to move through this interaction by just ignoring the elephant in the room. And so she comes in the room, sits down, we start to chat, and I'm genuinely like, I'm like, can we hold hands? And like just trying to create like a safe environment to fucking communicate. And she's laughing and sort of making fun of this and just basically, again, I don't want to go into like the fine print of the conversations because it's a lot, man. It's just like frustrating to even hear. Nobody wants to hear about two people fighting. But it really didn't feel that way to me. It really felt like she was fighting herself. However that may sound, that's genuinely what it felt like, and that was, at least that was my reality. And again, it just got to the point where I said, well, listen, I'm not going to put up with this again. I told you I didn't want another fucking drama and yada yada. I've been transparent with you about where I'm at, but you don't see that the way that you're communicating is very negative. And she said, I do see it. I'm sorry, blah, blah. And like, just like, when I say that I know what the fuck was going on, is because my gut was telling me, and also because at several moments where her defenses allowed her to, she acknowledged that was what was going on. I'm sure if you asked her today, she would fucking tell you a completely different story. But in those moments when I said, you're communicating really negatively, I'm being transparent. I don't know what the fuck you want. I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do. I can't help you because you're afraid of this thing and the emotion. And she was like, you're right. And then she would make up some other shit and try to like gaslight me and, avoid ownership. She didn't want to take ownership at all, man. She was putting it all on me. So I said, I'm going to go home, dude. I'm not a child, and I'm not going to put up with childish behavior, right? I've given you opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to talk about how you feel, but I'm only going to put up with this. And dude, as soon as I said the words put up with, she fucking shot up out of bed and she screamed like a child. And she said, I'm sick of you telling me that you're going to put up with me. And dude, maybe I don't know from somebody listening to this, I don't know if it comes across, but in that moment, it was so evident to me that she wasn't even talking to me anymore, and that she was reliving some past interaction or some past trauma. Something from her past had come up for her and triggered her, and she had exited the realm of the present moment. And again, I could theorize, right? It felt almost like she was yelling at one of her parents for not giving her what she needed, and using me as the object to express that. And so I got up, dude, and I started putting my shit away and just getting ready to call another Uber, right? And then she comes back and she says, I don't want you to leave. And, and at this point, I'm just like, dude, I've been where she is right now. And I've been this fucking, just this not piece of shit, dude. I don't want to be critical and judgmental because I've been there. But just this person that's like feeding the other person negativity, and then as soon as they see that they're going to lose the other person, they're like trying to reel them back, and I just started to feel so disoriented, man, and just so like, where the fuck am I? Who is this person that I had been talking to for a month that now seems like a completely different person to me, and that I'm really not that interested in anymore? And I was sitting on the sofa with her as she was saying, how can I help? I don't want you to leave, blah, blah. And we didn't really come to any sort of conclusion or agreement. I just sort of was like exhausted and defeated and drained that I somehow agreed to stay there. And I'm sure part of it was because I convinced myself that, if we can only just have sex, then everything will be okay. Then we'll connect and then everything will be okay, right? Which is my own shit. That's my own wound. And so we get in bed, we lie down, we're getting ready to go to sleep. And I try to initiate sex with her, and she says, I'm feeling really tired, so I'd rather not. And I say, okay, that's okay. She rolls over, tries to go to sleep, and then I roll over and I'm trying to go to sleep. And I'm sitting there, dude. I'm just thinking, I'm not thinking, I'm feeling. I'm feeling in my gut just this like, I don't want to be here right now. Like this doesn't feel good. I'm in someone else's bed who I feel like just treated me very poorly. And I would like to be in my own space. I was just like, yeah, dude, I get to decide where I sleep tonight. I get to decide what I put up with. I get to decide, I get to make these decisions. These decisions don't have to be made for me anymore. And they don't have to be not made either, because that is a form of making a decision. And so I just was like going over this over and over and over. And I was like, maybe I could just fall asleep, wake up, then we'll have sex, and then everything will be okay. And I was like, but do I really want that? Then everything will be okay. We just had this conversation, this 2 hours of conversation, where she just, it's not even that we were disagreeing, is that just we were having a different conversation. She was in the past, reliving some past trauma, and I was trying to communicate with somebody that wasn't listening to me. So why did I want to have sex with somebody and like make up and then everything will be like. And so I said, I was like, I can go home. Okay, I can go home. And I pulled her aside gently and I said, hey, I'm not really feeling well. I think I need to go home, but I'm gonna call an Uber so that you can stay in bed, and that's that. And so I do, man. I get a fucking Uber, and I go home. And as soon as I'm in the Uber and then I get home, I just feel like, whew, like, good job, man. Good fucking job getting out of there. I crash on my bed. And I'm just like, dude, like I'm home. And I don't just mean home in the physical sense, but like I came home to myself. And I wake up the next day and I start to think like, maybe I can see her again. Maybe things will be okay. And she texts me, hey, I'm doing this thing at this time. Do you want to come join me? And I'm just like so unsure of what to do, right? So I go in the bathroom, dude, and I rub one out, man. Masturbate, man, and I think if I do this, then it'll clear my head and I'll be able to make a better decision. Dude. I swear to God, man, if you're a female listening to this, men sometimes think like this, and I'm prone to it. And I thought, as soon as I came, dude, I thought I was clear headed, and I was like, dude, fuck, dude, thank God that I did that. And I texted her, I want to let you know I don't think I'll be seeing you again. I want to do what's best for me, but have a good rest of your trip. She says, I understand, blah, blah. And end of conversation, man. I eat a few mushrooms that day, and I just spend the whole day by myself, spend the whole day with myself. I don't write. I do meditate, but I don't write. I don't, you know, I don't do anything. I'm just here, man. I'm just here in my apartment. I sit outside for a while. I sit inside. I listen to music. And it gets to being like 6 or 7 p.m. and I start weeping. Dude, I start weeping and just like just feeling it all. I just start feeling like man, I once again put my well-being in the hands of another person, which I shouldn't have done, and which I did out of, old wounds, man. And I was disappointed. I felt alone. I was longing for a meaningful connection with somebody. And I thought that I'd convinced myself that I could make that happen with her, because I don't think I was ever convinced that we could make that happen together. I think I saw the signs the whole way through. From the very first date, when she was in Austin the first time, there were several moments where I just felt this tension, and I knew we don't know how to communicate with each other. Or our mode of communication, it's not, we're not on the same level of consciousness, dude. And that was why I was, I was upset at her until I started weeping, dude. And I realized I was upset at myself because I made the decisions that put me in that position. I saw the signs and I chose to believe I can make this work. I can fix this person. I've seen the red flags. I can roll them down, dude, and put up white flags. I could change this. And yeah, man, then she texted me that night and she said, I left a package for you at your door. It was some things I brought you from where she was visiting, and there's no point in taking them home. And I was like, yeah, you could have thrown them away though. If I told you I didn't want to see you again, yeah, this seems like another fucking, you fucking see if he takes. And I walk out, there's a fucking brown paper bag outside of my door. And inside, there's a box of tea and a letter. And, it's a fucking, a letter, just this letter, man. Like we'd been dating for a year and a half, and she was saying goodbye for the last time. And I go to work the next day. I wake up and I just feel depressed, man. I just feel like I just got broken up with, or not like I just feel like I ended something that was way more serious than whatever this is or was. And I'm just at work, dude. I'm just feeling like shit, man. I'm just like, fuck, dude. I'm just like, fuck, dude. I'm just like, fuck, dude. And in in like a software hasn't updated glitch moment, I'm like, dude, I'm going to text her. And I text her, hey, are you still interested in seeing me? Purely, dude, at this point, purely because I was like, you know, what have I got to lose? You know, there were things, right? But I'd had sex with her, dude, and I'd seen glimpses, and I was just fucking in this moment, this little pocket of 3 minutes of weakness that I was just like, let's just, I had the message typed out, and I was like, should I send it or should I not? Boop, oops, just oops. Let's see what fucking oops, like Biden with the fucking nuclear codes, just oops, you know. And there was maybe like 6 days left on her trip at that point, and she said, long story short, she was like, yeah, I'm open to seeing you again, but I can't tonight. And I was like, why not tonight? She's like, she's not responding, dude, right? Like 2 hours later, she's like, because I made commitments with someone else, and now I'm on a date with them, and all of a sudden I wish that I was with you instead. And I just like fucking like, dude, just fucking like, just felt like a fucking, like that fucking will it take that she threw, fucking, just caught me on the fucking cheek and just started pulling me, dude. Like, dude, I chose to, again, I put myself in this situation. And at that point I was like, fuck it, dude. I'm never going to see this person again. She's fucking stunningly beautiful. I might as well just fucking try to ignore what I'm feeling and just enjoy what it is, man, and have some great sex and call it a night. And yeah, man, like that's pretty much what it ended up being, was just like not very emotional sex, but pretty good sex, and then pretty mediocre time together outside of that, like mediocre conversation, feeling very disconnected from each other, and just kind of very superficial, man. It was all very, very superficial. After a certain point, when I genuinely think it was probably before she even got here, but I couldn't lie to myself anymore after she after the night at her place. And then when she said I went on a date with someone else, I was like, oh yeah, you don't give a fuck, dude, and neither do I. So why are we pretending? Let's just fucking, let's just hurt each other for another 6 days, but have good sex. This basically what it ended up being, man. And the reason that I bring all this up, man, and I know I'm already over the hour, but there's a couple reasons that I bring this up, and it's, one of them is because I have an opportunity here to be honest and be vulnerable about something that has been really difficult for me. And I know I can kind of joke around and make it seem like, what's the big deal, dude? You just had somebody, you just knew her for 2 months. What is the big deal? And I'll tell you what the big deal is, man, is that I hadn't felt like my traumas had been this triggered since my ex-girlfriend. There'd been, that's maybe an over-exaggeration, but there had been maybe one or two other women who I was like, ooh, like having a hard time setting boundaries with. But this was the first time where I genuinely felt like I identified something that wasn't good for me, that I didn't want, and I wasn't able at every moment. Because I was at sometimes I wasn't able to choose myself over her. In some fucked up way, I was, but I still chose to put myself in the same situation over and over and over 4 or 5 times while she was here, knowing that she doesn't know how to communicate with me and I don't give a fuck about her anymore. Like out of respect for her too and for myself, it should have just ended after that second night. But and so yeah, man. So it triggered a lot of like, because I've been in several relationships, not exclusive ones, but I've dated several women since my ex-girlfriend that was almost 2 years ago, where I realized, okay, I don't want to see this person anymore. I had a hard time saying that for like a week or two, and then when I finally said it, I felt immediately, oh, I made the right decision, and I was able to move on. And this was the first time that I said, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And then I felt this like depression come on and just this feeling of like despair and like, I don't want to do anything anymore. And then I went back because it was hard to feel that. And so it was fucking challenging, man. It was challenging. And the lesson that I took away, and I talked about this in therapy, man, and he was so fucking so happy, dude, that this was my takeaway, was that there was two things. I did set boundaries, when I was at that bar and she said, I'm not going to have sex with you because blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, well, then it seems like this is a bad idea, so I'll go home. And then she said, please don't cancel your Uber. I set the boundary, and I was like, no, dude, just go home. This doesn't feel good anymore. Just go home right now. And I did, and I enforced it, and I went home, and I respected that. The second time I saw her, at her place, I was trying to communicate. She wasn't there for it. I removed myself out of the situation when I was in that bed, and my gut was telling me, get out of here. I listened to it and I went away. So, there was that component of it. And then there's also the forgiving and compassionate part of it, which is much harder for me, I think. If there were two things that if I could only choose two things to work on myself for the next 70 years of my life, it would be compassion and boundaries. And so the boundaries I was able to set, I should have, maybe not should have, but like I could have set more and been more firm with them. But I think taking that perspective is not a compassionate perspective. And so here's the second takeaway, which was the one that my therapist was really, hammering down on me when I told him that I thought this was just, yes, I've had a hard time not going back and seeing her again, but what matters more is that I am okay with that. And that I'm not, punishing myself for having a hard time with this. Because it's not, my initial thought was like, oh, this means that everything you've been doing hasn't worked because look at you, you're making the same mistakes that you've made in the past. And the reality wasn't that, in the past, I wouldn't have set any boundaries. In the past, I would have stayed in that bed, dude, just hoping, just praying that in the morning she would have sex with me and that then everything would be okay. I would have not had the wherewithal to leave at certain moments to check in with myself. And I just would have seen it as like black and white, I either see her and it's wrong or I don't see her and it's right. And this time it was like, no, dude, things are not black and white. They're a little bit of gray. And the gray here is, yes, you've identified that this isn't going anywhere. You know, this is not long term by any stretch of the imagination. But can you still have fun? Can you still try to enjoy it? Explore that, explore that option. And what it gave me was somehow I was able, when she said, like, yeah, I went on a date with someone else, I was able to just be like, oh, that just makes me sad for her, not for me. Um, and just practice, not attaching so much to the idea of what things could be, and just um yeah, man, I don't know. I just feel like, despite the fucking wild ride that it was, mostly just trying to reach somebody that wasn't reachable, and then checking out at a certain point, and then becoming the unreachable one, because I was just like, nah, this is just a casual fucking thing for me now. I can't even take this seriously anymore. But being honest, throughout the whole thing, just being honest, and in those moments where it became too difficult for me to witness what she was doing, I was able to remove myself from the equation, and to spend time with her at my own pace, is basically it. And so, yeah, man, I don't know. There's a lot to it. This was a day ago that I last saw her. And so there's a lot more that I'm going to be reflecting on, and but at the same time, I don't feel this super strong need to, like, turn this into some fucking article or some, crazy thing that someone can consume. It's just like, this was for me, man. This was a learning lesson for me, and just a reminder that the dips are there, not to show us, not to tell us that we're not doing the work or that we're doing it wrong, but to remind us why we're doing the work, dude. And I told one of my best friends, dude, who I went to kindergarten with. I told her this like 2 or 3 nights ago. I told her, you are the reason, you are such a valuable friend to me, because even though, I don't feel any kind of romantic attraction to you, and or physical, like, I don't, this is only a friendship for me, and I only have love for you as a friend. On top of that, I see the things that you possess that I want in a female partner. Like, you want children, and you want to be a better human being, and you're working on your trauma, and you're learning about these things, and you're trying to heal, and you're trying to, become somebody that could one day be a mother. And it's just, and having a friend that is doing that is a woman, it's just this, it's like a, like I having that friend there is just always going to be a reminder to me of, like, don't settle for anything less than that, because there are women out there like that, and you, my friend, are an indicator of that, and always a reminder to me that, if you meet somebody and they're not working on themselves, and they're not treating you with respect, dude, and they're not, they don't want the same things that you do, that is okay. There are other women out there who do. And so, yeah, so that was, this was that, this was another reminder that, she doesn't want kids, dude. She doesn't even want to acknowledge that her childhood has any bearing on her present behavior. Uh, and and so those two things are already like automatically discard any chance of it being a long-term thing, man. But so yeah, man. I hope that that feeds into your life in some way and helps you see maybe some threads that you've been thinking of in your romantic relationships, or close some threads that you had been looking for closure with. Um, yeah, yeah. At the end of the day, man, it's the fucking pupil's life, and whether I have my friend or whether I have the podcast dude, whoever the fuck is listening, this is a this is a weird world, man. And people who don't struggle to adapt to the reality of the world, I don't think, we call those people well adjusted, but I think that that's just like well accustomed to ignoring the fact that this is a wild, fucking weird, and scary at times world. Um, but one fucking day at a time. It's been almost 2 years, and I'm still going, man. I'm still going, and I haven't just fallen back into a relationship just because I'm afraid to be alone, just because I'm afraid to feel unlovable, just because I'm afraid to feel like I'm not enough. Um, again, there's those dips. There's those dips where you fall back on some habits, you fall back on some patterns, some old things that you don't really want to repeat, but then they remind you, oh yeah, I can't ignore this. If I ignore it, then this happens. I always have to be showing myself love. Um, and that's a hard task, man. Especially when you weren't shown love as a kid. It's a hard task to love yourself every day. Um, but I feel like I'm doing the best that I can with that right now, especially for a 25-year-old male dude. you know, I feel like I'm doing a pretty damn good job. Um, and so yeah, so I just appreciate you guys listening, and and yeah, man, this is the pupil's life. I went over a little bit, but uh, but yeah, I don't know, man. If you want to hear more about healing and this kind of, I might write something about this in my newsletter, man. You can go to sendfox.com/nikoagf and sign up for my newsletter. I try to send it out once a week, but sometimes that's difficult, and sometimes it doesn't feel necessary. So you don't really have to worry about spam. But if you have a better time learning by reading, dude, then I think a lot of the content that I send out in that newsletter will be helpful to you. So sendfox.com/nikoagf. And if you enjoyed this episode, man, like it, subscribe. If you didn't, dislike it, dude. Do whatever you want to do. I'll see you all next week. Thank you so much for listening, and all the best to you this week.